Police in New Mexico arrest a Coffeyville, Kansas homicide suspect. The U.S. Census Bureau releases the first round of data from the 2020 census.
President Biden will mark 100 days in office this week. I'm Natalie Brand at the White House with what a CBS News poll says about his approval rating so far.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Authorities arrest a suspect in a Coffeyville, Kansas homicide. This is KOAM News at 5. Coffeyville police say officers on Friday responded to the 700 block of West Martin Street for a shooting. When officers arrived, they learned the victim, 46-year-old Christopher Temple, had been taken to the hospital. Temple later died of his wounds. Today, authorities announced the suspect, 24-year-old Ruben Robles of Coffeyville, has been arrested in New Mexico. Checking in with Doug Heddy now. Warm and windy out there, Doug.
Yes, super windy day for us today. We've had winds gusting 40 upwards to 50 miles per hour at times, and very warm. We've shot well into the 80s for highs. We do have a lot of mid and upper level clouds streaming across the region, but there's nothing underneath the clouds, so we are going to stay dry throughout the evening into the overnight hours tonight. But this is the beginnings of our next storm system. It's moving into the western parts of the Rockies, and this system will start to affect us late in the daytime hours for us tomorrow. But look at our temps, 80 to about 84, 85 degrees, so very warm, very windy evening. We have these south winds sustained at about 20 to 30, and of course we've been getting gusts quite a bit higher than that. Most of us about 35 to 40 to 45 miles per hour. So of course we're going to talk about this next storm system coming in, all coming up here in just a bit.
All right, we'll see you then. Thanks, Doug. The city of Joplin today hosted a media briefing to discuss vaccination efforts. Officials said the vaccine supply in the city remains high, but demand for the vaccine is going down. When it comes to vaccination rate, Joplin is sitting above the state average.
Reserve the right to do that if it felt warranted. I do think that we feel like we can take a step in confidence in our reopening and not think that we're going to backtrack, but if we need to, absolutely.
City officials also said they're working on plans for next month's 10th anniversary of the tornado. The Census Bureau today released the state population counts from the 2020 numbers. The population count is essential to funding each state, the funding that they receive from the federal government for federal assistance programs. In 2015, Missouri received nearly $11.3 billion in federal funding that went to 16 programs. For Joplin, census data is key demographically for the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds the city receives.
So that is probably the primary way we receive funds, and that's based on low to moderate income population or not-for-profit work. And so the census may change dramatically, but if that group doesn't change, it maybe wouldn't change the amount of funding that we receive.
Tonight at 6, we're going to hear more about the importance of accurate population counts for states and the other impacts that information has. President Biden marks 100 days in office this week and will deliver his first address to a joint session of Congress. While he's receiving high marks in a recent poll, his administration still faces challenges with vaccine hesitancy and immigration. Natalie Brand reports from the White House.
Days away from his 100th day on the job, President Biden is gearing up for his first address to a joint session of Congress Wednesday with a smaller in-person audience.
From his vantage point, it still is an opportunity to speak directly to the American people about the progress that's been made, the work that's still ahead.
A new CBS News poll shows most Americans approve of the way President Biden is handling the country's top priorities, with especially high marks on the coronavirus response and vaccine distribution. The president is also receiving high grades on his $2 trillion infrastructure proposal dubbed the American Jobs Plan, but the survey showed a partisan divide.
I give the president A+ on rhetoric, but I give him an F on results.
Republicans are expected to push back against a soon-to-be-unveiled second spending proposal from the president, which focuses on families, child care, and education.
One element of this reform will be to change how we tax capital gains. And as you all know, that's income from selling stocks and other assets. For taxpayers that make more than $1 million per year.
Republicans have also hit President Biden on his handling of immigration, an issue on which he polls under 50%.
We've got to secure that border. And the Biden administration can no longer ignore the problem.
Today, Vice President Harris is meeting virtually with the president of Guatemala to discuss the root causes of the rising number of migrants, many of them unaccompanied minors, at the southern border. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
President Biden today signed an executive order to create a task force on worker organizing and empowerment. The White House says the task force will be led by the vice president and will focus on using existing federal authorities to help workers join labor unions and bargain collectively. The Federal Justice Department is opening a sweeping probe into policing in Louisville, Kentucky over the March 2020 death of Breonna Taylor. Taylor was shot to death by police during a raid at her home, in which her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, says he thought police were intruders and shot at them. It's the second such probe into a law enforcement agency by the Biden administration in a week. There's also an investigation into Minneapolis police. The U.S. pledges support as the world's worst outbreak of COVID-19 ravages India. The country recorded more than 350,000 new cases and nearly 3,000 deaths in the past 24 hours. The country accounts for nearly half of the world's new COVID cases every day. The U.S. is sending support in the form of medical supplies and raw materials to make vaccines. A little bit later, the rise of digital money.
A baseball stadium suite, weddings, and even medical services can now be paid for with Bitcoin. I'm Nancy Chen with how cryptocurrency is becoming more mainstream.
And next in Health Watch, how a new pilot program aims to make it easier to test for the coronavirus. Researchers in Boston found that while mother-to-newborn COVID infection rates are low, babies can suffer indirect adverse risks, especially if a baby needs to be born preterm because the mother is sick. The study also found newborns of socially vulnerable mothers were at an increased risk for coronavirus infection. We're getting an inside look at a new pilot program to give Americans a chance to test themselves for the coronavirus at home. At first, the rapid testing kits will be handed out in 2 counties in North Carolina and Tennessee. The goal is to measure how easy access to COVID tests can affect the spread of the virus. Reporter David Begnow has more.
Welcome to Pitt County, North Carolina. Population about 180,000. This is one of 2 sites chosen to be part of a new federal program to bring COVID testing into people's homes, starting at places like this.
This is a happy day.
Holly Hill Free Will Baptist Church, where after the services, parishioners were asked to say yes to the test.
Thank you. There are 25 tests in this kit.
EVEANGEL Savage is part of that outreach effort, managing the distribution of testing kits across 10 municipalities.
So by reaching out to our churches, we have a greater reach for the citizenry in our county.
And here's your box here. Okay, thank you very much.
That outreach includes pastors like Manuel Medina from Greenville's Grace Family Fellowship. Pastor Medina has firsthand experience with COVID. Over the summer, it put him in the ICU. It also killed his mother-in-law, Julia Medina.
I understand what COVID is and how good these kids will be for the families to avoid that.
Nancy Hooks, who is a resident of Pitt County, showed us how it works. Each kit has 25 tests to be taken 3 times a week. Users swab their nose, place the swab inside the tube filled with a special solution, then remove the swab and put a test strip into the tube. 10 minutes later, the strip confirms a positive or negative antigen test.
3 times a week testing with this kind of technology is just as good as the gold standard PCR.
Dr. Francis Collins is the director of the National Institutes of Health. He says the goal of the program is to see if home testing affects people's behaviors and slows transmission by comparing rates of transmission in Pitt County to similar communities that don't have those kits.
Is it a little late in the pandemic to be doing this?
The technology to be able to do testing at home has really just gotten invented. And let's be clear, we're not over the risks of this pandemic. We still have 40 or 50,000 people a day testing positive.
And with just about 20% of Pitt County vaccinated at this point, there is still a long way to go before everyone is protected. So as of today, program managers say they've handed out more than 15,000 test kits so far. David Begno, CBS News, New York.
Director Collins points out this could be where testing is headed, giving people the tools to test themselves at home before going to work or to see family. Researchers at Syracuse University compared pain relief from pure CBD oil to the so-called placebo effect. They found patients experienced improvement in pain using cannabidiol, and they also felt psychological effects simply from expecting they had gotten CBD. That's a look at today's health news. A little bit later, Moderna signs a deal with a French drug maker to help produce more doses of their COVID-19 vaccine.
Warm temperatures sticking around the next few days, but also some thunderstorms. We're going to look at that coming up. Well, of course, a very warm, very windy day for us today. We've had winds gusting in that 40 to 50 mile per hour range. And then, of course, very warm, well into the 80s. You got to remember, just 7 nights ago, even 6 nights ago, we had freezes. We dropped into the 20s last Monday night, just not the case for us today. So yesterday was great, mid 70s. We only fell back near 60 this morning, and then we went into the mid 80s for highs for us today. We're still there. Very nice, very windy evening. 80 in Neodesha, 84 in Miami. Pitt sitting at 80, 83 in Neosho. We have Lamar checking in at 80 degrees. But look at these strong south winds. These are sustained in that 20 to 30 mile per hour range. And then if you pull out the wind gust, you can see 30s, 40s popping up. The winds are going to diminish some tonight into tomorrow. They're still going to be strong, but not as strong as what we have seen throughout the daytime hours today. A lot of clouds, thin upper level clouds. It's warm, sitting at 82, south winds at 21. Humidity is pretty low at 37%. As we go through the evening hours, we'll slide back through the 80s, 70s, and only down into the mid 60s for overnight lows tonight. So it stays warm. You can open up the windows. Pretty nice night when you get the breeze kind of rolling through the house. And we are going to stay dry, even though we have a lot of clouds, but this is the beginnings of our next storm system, which is building out to the west. So all these clouds, they aren't producing anything. Main system pulling out into the western parts of the Rockies. You can see the spin right across northern parts of Nevada, and it's that system that is going to affect us over about the next 3 to 4 days. So let's go through time. A lot of clouds tonight, mid 60s. Still mostly cloudy skies for us tomorrow. There's a slight chance we could get a few storms in here by evening, but I really think most of the day is going to be dry. We'll start at 65, 74 by noon, high temp up to about 78 tomorrow afternoon. Not quite as warm, just due to a little bit more cloud cover for us tomorrow. During the evening hours, here's 10 p.m. Scattered thunderstorms start popping up. This is mainly going to be on the Kansas side, but some of these could be strong, maybe even severe, and they're going to be kind of clusters that roll through. So you can see after midnight, some more scattered thunderstorms popping up and into Wednesday morning. So a few of these could be strong to severe as we go through the overnight hours tomorrow night. Main threat would be hail and wind. As we head into Wednesday, morning showers and thunderstorms, and then by the afternoon, we'll start to get some stronger storms getting going on the Kansas and the Oklahoma side, and some of those could be strong to severe. The last little batch will roll through right around the midnight hour heading into Thursday morning, and some of those could pack a punch, and then we get on the back side of the system and our severe threat will definitely start to drop. All right, severe threat tomorrow, mainly on the Kansas and the Oklahoma side. I'm going to keep all the threats on the low side, meaning hail, wind, and tornado. But we are going to pick up a lot of rain over the next few days. A lot of areas are going to pick up an additional 1 to 3 inches on top of the heavy amounts of rain we just had late last week. 78 tomorrow, 72 Wednesday, 67 with some showers on Thursday. Friday cooler. We are going to drop to 38 Friday morning, so we need to watch that. But besides that, next weekend looks pretty good too.
Yeah, once we get past the severe weather threat.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Todd. Coming up, cryptocurrency continues to hit big as more companies adopt it as a form of payment. First, though, we honor a local veteran. Dana Lloyd served in the U.S. Navy in 1981 and 1982. Pittsburgh native was stationed in the West Pacific, and we salute Aviation Ordnanceman Petty Officer 2nd Class Dana Lloyd, a four-state hero. U.S.-based Moderna will get some help from the French later this year. Drug maker Sanofi says it's inked a deal to help produce as many as 200 million doses of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine beginning in the fall. The production would be based in the U.S. and help boost supply through April of next year. A green light for some Americans. According to the New York Times, the European Union will allow fully vaccinated Americans to travel to Europe this summer. Officials have not given a specific timeline, but the European Commission is expected to recommend a policy change that would allow resumed travel. Honda wants to go green. The Japanese automaker announced plans to phase out all gasoline-powered vehicles in North America by 2040. It's the latest major automaker with a goal of becoming carbon neutral. The company's CEO expects that 40% of its North American vehicle sales will be battery or fuel cell powered by the end of the decade. Cryptocurrency has been big with investors trading the digital currency, but it has yet to break through with consumers as a mainstream way to buy and sell goods. Well, that might be changing. Reporter Nancy Chen explains how more companies are embracing Bitcoin.
When baseball recently welcomed back spectators, it marked the start of something new at the home of California's Oakland A's. Fans watched from a season suite paid for with Bitcoin, the first time cryptocurrency was used to buy a Major League Baseball ticket.
We thought starting with the suite sale, which is typically about $65,000 for a year, and Bitcoin was approaching $60,000, we said it's a perfect time to demo this and to see if it has any traction.
Dave Cavell is the team's president.
Given where you are, it makes sense that you're the first professional baseball team to be trying this out.
Our fans are all over the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. I think there's an opportunity down the line where even sponsors could theoretically pay with Bitcoin, and we can use other aspects of cryptocurrency in our business.
And it's not just the A's. Elon Musk recently announced people can use Bitcoin to drive away with a Tesla. This Nashville hotel accepts cryptocurrency for weddings, and even medical services can be paid for with it.
Some people think that it's more private and more secure.
San Francisco Dr. Paul Abramson started accepting Bitcoin about 9 years ago, but it hasn't been easy.
It's kind of hard for us right now to convert it into dollars in an efficient way. And the tax consequences are a little less clear these days. So we're trying to really just sort of limit our exposure to Bitcoin transactions right now.
And cryptocurrency's wild swings in value is keeping many people from jumping on the bandwagon. So it's not clear if use of the digital money will ever become as widespread as dollars and cents. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
A final check of the forecast next. The CBS Evening News is next. Then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to have more about how the 2020 census data will impact 4 states. Plus, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri make decisions on future use of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. And a Newton County, Missouri man is sentenced for his role in shooting at a police officer. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Astronomers have released a new map of the Milky Way galaxy. It shows the outermost region of the galaxy using data from NASA and the European Space Agency telescopes. The strip in the middle represents a 360-degree view of our galaxy, overlaying a map of the galactic halo. The halo is thought to contain a lot of dark matter and most of the mass in the universe. In the bottom right is the large Magellanic Cloud. Data suggests the small neighboring galaxy is cut through the Milky Way's outer halo, which left behind a wave of stars shown in the bottom left of the image. You are here. Kind of an idea of what our galaxy might look like if we weren't actually in the galaxy, looking at it from
That's true.
very, very far away.
It's hard to look from that perspective.
Yes,
obviously. All right, for us tonight, we're going to stay windy. Fairly warm, down to about 65. 78 tomorrow. We'll start to get some scattered thunderstorms by evening.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right back here at 6. In the meantime, let's take care of ourselves and each other.